Welcome, everyone, to the Group D pitch session. This is pitch session number 4 at Investment Crowdfunding Week 2026. So I'm your host, Amanda Benaim. I'm a sales manager at Dealmaker. At Dealmaker, we help companies raise capital from their communities while also building them. The way that we see it, raising capital from the community is really like e-commerce. You need to get the right opportunity in front of the right eyeballs at the right time. And we're not a marketplace. We're actually rather a one-stop shop for raising capital from end to end. And what that means is we're the technology, we're the broker dealer, the transfer agent, and the marketing agency that drives investor acquisition across Reg CF, Reg A, and Reg D offerings. So Dealmaker has processed about 2.5 billion to date across our offerings, and we believe in building communities for the purpose of long-term, repeatable, and sustainable growth. This session is sponsored by Exchange Listing. So thank you for your support of ICW and the founders joining today. Joining me as well is co-host Léa Bouhelier-Gautreau, Senior Investment Associate at Kingscrowd Capital. And Léa will serve as our featured investor, asking each founder a question after their pitch and sharing some closing thoughts before we vote. So here's how today's session is going to work. We have 4 companies presenting today. Each founder gets 5 minutes to pitch. I'll keep time and give a signal as we approach the end. And after each pitch, Léa will ask a question and we'll have a brief exchange with the founder. At the close of the session, you, the audience, get to vote for the company that made the most compelling case. And the top vote getter from Group D advances to the championship pitch session on Wednesday, April 15th, where all 5 group winners will be competing for a $5,000 awarded directly toward their raise. And all 4 companies you'll see today are actively raising capital right now, and there are links to their campaigns in the event platform. So let's get started. So first up, we have to kick us off is going to be Adam Jason. So please welcome Adam. He is the CEO of North America Green Coffee Company.
Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I assume you do. Amanda, team, thank you from Dealmaker, Adam Jason, co-CEO of the Green Coffee Company. Only have 5 minutes, but I want to try to take you to the Andean mountains of Colombia in my presentation today. Green Coffee Company, born in 2017, we're now the largest producer of coffee in Colombia. 45 farms, 10,000 acres, 10 million coffee trees. In the bottom left, the statistics related to our small farmer purchase program. And then in the middle, I was mentioning that we are invested heavily in closing the gender inequality gap that traditionally exists in Colombian coffee farming with our nursery efforts run by our single mothers, heads of household program. Every year, they're responsible for growing and producing about 700,000 trees that get taken to our farms. Think of this as a vertically integrated coffee producer with a one-of-a-kind story from Colombia, making a huge impact in the country. Our team is simply the best in Colombian coffee, bar none. Uh, the team ranges from public company CFOs to Yvonne, who you see in the upper right-hand corner, all the way to the ex-president of Colombia, who you see in your bottom right, who serves as one of our strategic board advisors. The business model itself, as I mentioned, fully integrated from farm to cup. You can see the greenhouse in the upper left of the screen. We grow and produce about 700,000 coffee trees, and we bring all that coffee from our farms in Colombia to the US for downstream sales. We have 2 primary channels through which we sell coffee into developed markets, primarily the US and Canada. First is private label wholesale and food service. This is coffee that we sell to restaurant groups, hotels, casinos, cruise lines, basically wherever coffee is served is a potential client for us. We also hold in North America the exclusive rights to the Juan Valdez coffee brand, the most recognized brand in the history of Colombian coffee. I'm sure many of you remember the commercials from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s in the US. The brand still exists today with about a 28% market awareness across Gen Pop and then very heavily in the Hispanic population. We started our go-to-market for roasted coffee in the US in 2025. Here you can see the clients that we've already onboarded. So they range from the UFC to the LA Rams, the US National Parks, which really connected to our story in Colombia and the impact that we're having. We only have a few minutes today, so it's hard to touch on all of the impact stories, but completely aligned from a values perspective with the parks. The map here gives some additional clients that we have. The Agostinos in New York, that's a Juan Valdez client. The Chicago Cubs, Rallies out on the West Coast, Harris Teeter on the East Coast. And then Target has become one of our biggest clients, growing from 55 stores to 317 stores in just the last year alone. Since we started taking the Juan Valdez brand back to market in 2025, this slide references about 1,000 doors that we opened. That changed 3 weeks ago when we got an award letter from Walgreens for an additional 1,400 stores. In addition to Walgreens, we've also won the business in the last 3 weeks for Carnival Cruise Lines. So this would be our food service business. Uh, Starting in May, if you're on a Carnival Cruise Line, you're going to be consuming Green Coffee Company coffee. Investment details, even though our operations in Colombia, everything's headquartered in the US, all the operating subsidiaries are consolidated through our US holding structure. The investment that you'd be making is in a US company, so US law governs, US banking, be like the same as investing in Apple. The security that we're offering is a common equity position with a 6% annual coupon. We've completed the Reg CF. As Amanda mentioned, we're going to move into a Reg A. In the meantime, we are offering some of our common interests to help facilitate working capital for these purchase orders. We basically have about a 120-day cash conversion cycle from the time we take coffee off our trees to when we get paid by customers. So we need some money to put up to be able to finance inventory. Accreditation, since we're in an off period for SEC raise purposes, investors would have to be accredited, and we're offering the shares for $100,000 minimum investments, which would be similar to the 500-person pool of high net worth investors that we already have to date. Our goal in the US is to get to an IPO as soon as 2027, and our projections put us at about a 3 to 4x return on investment coming in at the current share price. To conclude, some final why invest in GCC points. As I mentioned, strong growth pre-IPO opportunity. This year we should get to about $40 million in revenue, a lot of that based in our US and Canadian sales opportunities. US investment with international exposure, obviously hands-on in Colombia. Inflation, AI, recession-resistant business. People are going to keep drinking coffee no matter what happens in tech or the economy, frankly. And then, of course, the excitement around the exclusive rights to Juan Valdez in the US and Canada. With that, I think I'll turn it over for questions, leave up the information here about finalizing a potential investment as we go over to Q&A.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Adam, for this presentation. I see Tom in the comments that is saying very impressive. That's definitely the way I'm feeling right now. So
Great. Thank you.
we can see if we look at your revenue that you said on your race page you had about 1 million 2021 in revenue, 2023 the SEC filing so $20 million, 2024 already $36 million, close to 37. And honestly, if you ask me, if today a coffee company can just come into a market newly, a market that's, a very commoditized and fragmented as coffee, I wouldn't invest in a company that is starting from scratch because I will think, no, there's no way they're going to make it. It's just too difficult. But you have done it. And so as
Thank you.
we're trying to evaluate future growth, I want to kind of talk about the past and just try to understand what has been the execution that you really had to do in the last couple of years to reach this point. So could you please tell us what was really the hardest challenge that you faced? And how did you kind of overcome that? And that way, I really want investors to understand what are your execution capabilities.
As you mentioned, there's a lot of competition in coffee. It's tough to stand out on the shelf or stand out with potential buyers. We had to invest in the supply side of the business first and tell a story that's completely different in the market. Whether you're a Starbucks or a Nestle or any of the brands that people know, they buy coffee from intermediaries, traders. They never touch the coffee at the source. We decided to first become the farmers and be able to tell that ground up farm to cup story with all the sustainability aspects, everything that comes related to impact, so that when people buy our coffee, we're adding to their own marketing efforts about their supply chain. In addition, getting the rights to the Juan Valdez brand, we needed to create, along with our story, additional differentiators and wanted to rely on the brand power that comes with the Juan Valdez brand and that existing market awareness that consumers have. The facts are that Colombia reigns supreme in terms of the single origin coffees in the US. If you go to the supermarket and you see Honduran, Guatemalan, Hawaiian, Jamaican, Colombian, all of them lined up next to each other, market data shows that 70% of the time people choose Colombian. We wanted the number one origin and the number one brand that represents Colombian coffee in the minds of the consumer. And it took time and a lot of building to get access to those assets.
Amazing, thank you. Amanda, I'll let you tell us if there's any interesting question in the comments or if we should move to the next company.
People are commenting on, how key quality is, and that consumers are just so hyper aware of that right now and worldwide. So I think that really makes sense what you guys are experiencing on the shelves. Um,
Yes.
Someone asked how green are K cups. I don't know what those are, but otherwise,
K cups are the pods that you put into
um,
the Keurigs. There's advances in technology going on there to make those biodegradable. It's true, there's a big concern about all of those plastic cups going into into landfills. We're not pioneers on that. We're looking to partner with some folks who are that have the IP related to those. For now, our business is focused on generating demand, and then we'll continue to enhance the offering as we go forward.
amazing. And someone has also asked if there were any RX stainless steel permanent K cups.
I'm not aware of those.
Okay, me neither.
I do know
Uh,
there's refillable
mm,
pods you can buy on Amazon, wash them in the dishwasher after you use them, but I've never seen a stainless steel one, to be honest.
awesome. Well, I think that's it for our questions. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Adam. So next up, please welcome Arthur Erickson, who is the CEO of Hylio.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arthur Erickson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Hylio. Let me share my presentation really quickly here. Should be it. So, it's funny because when I started this company 11 years ago, I still had to explain what a drone was to a lot of people, which is funny now because everyone knows what a drone is, for better or for worse, right? So, there's a few problems. I'm gonna kind of jump ahead here, but there's a few problems that I want to bring up here that I think my company is uniquely positioned to solve. So, first big problem is that almost every drone in the world is made by China. Of course, the U.S. government and in fact most Americans in general aren't super happy about that for a number of reasons, not xenophobic reasons, but practical, economic, and military reasons, national security reasons, right? So that leaves the West with a intense desire to create drones that aren't Chinese, but really no infrastructure to do it with, right? So the best we could do in the West is to cobble together a bunch of, frankly, hobby grade parts and try to make systems that can compete with the juggernaut that is China. So Hylio is trying to solve all of that by being the infrastructural layer of high quality, robust, industrial grade, I mean, military spec grade drone components and drone systems and software that can power the Western drone revolution. So that's what my presentation is about today. So you can see my company, as I mentioned, is 11 years old. We've done 40 million in revenue already. We are profitable. cash flow positive since 2021, actually. So extremely rare for a hardware company, especially one doing flying hardware. And we're targeting $450 million in revenue by 2028. So really quickly, how we're going to get there is by solving a number of industrial problems, right? So this isn't just defense, but there's emergency response. There is just stuff like cleaning windows on buildings. There's agriculture, which is one of our biggest commercial sectors. And then there's the military stuff. So, I mean, generally speaking, drones are making industrial tasks across the board better, faster, stronger, I mean, cheaper, more precise, and safer. So we're trying to build the hardware and software infrastructure that allows a ton of other companies of the world to solve those problems, those industrial issues with drone technology reliably. So what does Hylio already make? Well, we have a purpose-built hardware fleet. So we've got a range of hardware drone models that we have sold for years now. We've actually just sold our 1,000th unit about 2 weeks ago. So for a drone company in America, that's actually a really big number, right? We have a ton of flight hours, over 20,000 flight hours on our hardware. Our software is probably the most valuable tech piece in our company. So we've been developing that since day one of the company. So it's over a decade old. And the software is, of course, what interfaces the human with our great hardware. So you need both. And we have made a lot of strides as a company in the autonomy side of things, right? So drone and autonomy go hand in hand. What does that actually mean? Does it mean, do you have a robust and let's say, extensible ground control station that allows you to just do all these different industrial tasks with relatively minimal modifying and like rewriting of the program and whatnot. So can you make something intuitive enough, but also powerful enough to answer all these problems across these different industry verticals? So we've done a lot. We have the best swarm control in the industry. I'm not just saying that. It's true because in 2024 we were the first company to receive FAA approval to swarm fly Group 3 drones, meaning drones larger than 55 pounds. We've got that because we have industry-leading swarm technology. So here's a few of our products, but for the sake of time, I won't go too much into it. Financial metrics here. We did 12 million last year. We're probably going to do double that, maybe 24, 25 million this year. Our gross margin generally is about 50%. So that's how we're able to be cash flow positive. We have fairly good margins. Our production rate right now is about 2 million per month. That's how we're going to hit 24, 25 million in 2026. In lifetime revenue here, it's actually 40 plus. There's 35 here, but it's a little bit more than that. So again, more of a visualization of the different industries that we currently service and can continue to grow into. So there's ag, there's industrial services. So that's your window cleaning, that's your solar panel cleaning, emergency response, like we delivering medicine or food in a disaster area that could be looking for survivors using a camera-based platform. Defense, number of things there. It's not necessarily just hurting people, but it could be delivering medical supplies to soldiers and stuff like that too. Here's the different market sizes. I know I'm short on time, but basically it's 163 billion total market opportunity. And then a quick comparison of us, so versus the other American companies that are available. Really, the big thing for us is that we are in a unique size category that's very useful for medium to large payloads. Most of the other companies in the industry thus far have focused on the small Group 1 little camera drone platforms. So there's this huge market of untapped potential to lift heavy stuff and put it down in faraway places. So yeah, the pitch is we want to be the Nvidia. It's kind of, I think, not great to compare yourself to another company, but for sake of speed here, we want to be the picks in the gold rush, right? So Nvidia with the GPUs and the AI gold rush, we want to be that, but for the drone gold rush. So we're making flight controllers, radios, other hardware that can enable all these other companies to build and scale this drone technology, right? So that's where Hylio wants to sit at the top of the food chain. And the rest of my presentation is about that. So here's the team. It's me and 3 other UT Austin grads, actually. So we're a fun little UT Longhorn story. We started the company literally in a dorm room together on campus. So here we are 11 years later, same 4 co-founders. All right, I think that's good. I'm over time. Q&A now.
All right, let's go through the Q&A. So thank you, Arthur. As many know here, Kingscrowd Capital already invested in Hylio during your last round. And one of the things that was really interesting for me is that I believe there is actually a financial incentive for farmers to adopt your product, meaning that it can also help them reduce overhead. Can you tell me what is the specific FAA authorization that Helio has relative to actually operating the drones? How does that compare to other companies, to other drones? And what do you kind of expect it to be in the future in terms of how many people are needed to operate each drone?
Yeah, so before, okay, in March of 2024, we got a exemption from the FAA, is what they call it officially. And that allowed a single operator to operate up to three of these group three, again, meaning a drone over 55 pounds at once. So previously, not only was it one person per drone, but it was two people per drone. So if you wanted to field three drones at once, you'd have to have six people. You'd have to have a pilot and a visual observer, two separate people for each drone. So this is a massive, from a regulatory perspective, decrease in the labor needed to actually go out and like field a drone operation. So it was way behind the industry because we had the tech, the ability to do this since like 2017. It wasn't until 2024 that the FAA caught up. But where we're going to take this is, so now that the FAA, we have this relationship with them, they trust our tech. We've proven time and time again that it's reliable. Now we can go a step further and say, hey, not only do we want to have multiple drones out there, but we want to have zero humans out there. So that's kind of the next move for us, is to prove to the FAA that we have autonomous systems that are robust enough and safe enough to be completely teleoperated. So no humans on site.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arthur. An amazing presentation. A question from the Q&A that's here for you is asking what differentiates your drones from, let's say, Ukrainian drones, as they're hearing differences in the quality of that.
Yeah, so in fact, I've worked with a lot of the Ukrainian people because we do some work with the Department of War, and Ukraine's got a different problem set, right? So they're building drones that are really, really fast and cheap to make, obviously, because they're meant to be attritable, meaning essentially disposable. So one-way drone. So what Hylio is making is let's say geared more towards like long-term industrial ROI, right? So these are very powerful business assets that you would buy if you were let's say a service provider trying to service like $100 million worth of solar panels across the country or something, right? So you're buying a relatively exquisite tool with a lot of autonomy and reliability built into it. That's going to give you great business ROI as an asset. So it's just a different mindset. It's not to say that we aren't cost competitive. We are very much way more cost competitive versus traditional ways of doing this with like a helicopter, for example, to spray buildings, so on and so forth. The drones are much more cost competitive. But we're not making one-way $500 drones. Ukraine is. So there's just a different level of, I mean, you can't expect that much tech on the Ukrainian drone because like it's purpose built for one thing, which is usually hit something and blow up. So we've got like a ton of autonomy and stuff that's built into our platform that you really can't afford to have in terms of weight or money in the Ukrainian type of stuff.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. I think that definitely answers their question. And yeah, I think that is all we have for you. So thank you so much, Arthur. There'll be maybe some more questions for you to answer offline in the Q&A. But thank you so much for presenting and telling us about Hylio.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So next up, please welcome Chase Collins, the CTO of Emission Free Generators.
So, Kingscrowd, thank you for having me. Excited to be here. So it was December 2017, and I was at home back in England when we got hit by quite a severe snowstorm. At first, it felt a little bit like bad weather, but within hours, that changed. And then the power went out. And it didn't come back for nearly a week. That's 7 to 8 nights without light, without heat, or without communication. And what started as an inconvenience quickly became something much more serious. People started to lose their lives. And sitting there in the dark, I remember thinking, how is this still happening in the modern world? How can we have all of this technology, yet when the grid fails, we're completely helpless? And that thought stayed with me because I realized something Simple but urgent. Families need a reliable way to stay safe, connected, and alive, even when the grid goes down. So we invented one. I'm Chase Collins, the inventor, co-founder, and CTO of emission-free generators. And we've developed a portable emission-free hydrogen-powered generator designed for anyone who needs electricity when the grid has failed, been damaged, or simply doesn't exist. Now, here's the reality. Blackouts are longer, rarer events. Across the United States, they're becoming normal. We're dealing with an aging infrastructure, the increased demand from EVs and data centers, and more extreme weather, from hurricanes on the East Coast to wildfires on the West. And the result? Blackouts are happening more and more often, lasting for longer periods of time and becoming more dangerous. But here's the real problem. None of the current solutions actually work when you need them most. Solar, no sunlight during storms, smoke or heavy cloud cover. Batteries, they run out, sometimes within a matter of hours. And gas generators, they rely on fuel supply chains, which often fail during disasters, and in many cases, gas lines are shut off entirely for safety. So in the exact moment when people need power the most, everything fails. And it gets worse. Across the US, 127 million Americans are unable to use any of these previous solutions. Why? Because they live in apartments, they don't have any outdoor space, or they physically can't move the heavy batteries, fuel cans, or solar equipment. So for nearly half the country, there is no solution. Until now. At EFG, we have designed something fundamentally different. Not just an improvement, a complete rethinking of backup power. Introducing the Zen H2, a standalone power system that works anywhere on Earth, at any time, day or night, indoors or out. There's no fuel storage, there's no sunlight required, and there's no grid connection needed. So how does it work? It's simple for the user. You insert our proprietary safe-to-ship powder fuel cartridge into the generator, and instantly you have electricity. Behind the scenes, something very powerful is happening. Our system uses AI-driven software to detect the electrical demand in real time. The moment you plug something in, whether it's a phone, a fridge, or a critical medical equipment, the system produces tiny, precise amount of green hydrogen. That gas is immediately consumed to generate your electricity. Then it stops and repeats over and over and over again. What that means is there is no hydrogen storage. There are no high pressures, no high temperatures, no wasted energy, no noise, and absolutely zero emissions. This isn't just cleaner, it's safer, smarter, and more accessible than anything on the market today. Now let's talk about how we're bringing this to the world. We're launching in California this year, one of the largest and most urgent markets for backup power, driven by wildfires, grid instability, and regulatory pressure for clean energy solutions. And I and my founder are not doing this alone. We've managed to build a world-class team. We have a board and advisors bringing over 35 years of experience in clean energy, multiple successful exits, and leadership roles at Fortune 500 companies. Our leadership team includes veterans from companies like Nestle and Toyota, people who understand how to scale products globally, efficiently, and responsibly. So this isn't just an idea. It's a scalable solution built by a team that knows how to execute. At EFG, we believe something very simple, that no one should be left in the dark, not during a storm, not during a wildfire, and not because of just where they live. We're building a future where clean, safe, reliable power is available to anyone at any time, anywhere. We're currently raising our Reg CF, which has been a fantastic response. So we're looking forward to have you join the journey as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chase. There's a couple of things I got from your presentation. One, I really understand why this is a different product from first gasoline generators that are going to be forbidden to be sold soon in California, and they're just polluting, expensive, etc. So better than batteries, because kind of standalone batteries are charged once, then you use the power ones, and then if you're really kind of off grid, you don't have any access to electricity, you don't have solar, it just doesn't work for you. And I see that you're going to go to market in California first, which is definitely a good move. But what I really want to understand is your go-to-market strategy. Can you tell us more about how you're going to enter the market? And even if your product seems interesting, you're still probably, going to face some challenges with adoption because hydrogen is kind of a big word, and a lot of people don't really understand how it works. Some people can even be afraid of it. So please walk us through your go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, of course. We're doing a mix of D2C and D2B. We are primarily a consumer product. So that education of how to use hydrogen safely is quite important in all our messaging. All of our brand is geared for that. Now, the way our cartridges work means there's no high pressure gas storage, which is one of the main fighters that people have with hydrogen, especially in vehicles. So we get rid of that issue right off the bat. Going direct to consumer, we can get straight to the source and get that instant feedback of the pushback between people. But we're also backed up by having businesses and utilities in particular in California and over in Alabama as well, that will buy units from us and give them to their consumers as well. So we're doing a double barrel attack.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chase. A couple questions. Who are your key competitors in the space?
That's an interesting question because we're almost making a new market for ourselves. There aren't any other continuous power generators that can operate inside, for example. Our closest competitors are companies like Jackery or Blue Yeti. Those are the battery backups. But once 1 or 2 hours of power, they are now expensive paperweights. Whereas we can be 24/7 continuous power for as many cartridges as you have. On the other side, on the outdoor landscape, we have conventional gas generators, but they're not eco-friendly. They're not clean. They're not silent. If you want to go camping, boating, or RVing, you don't want a noisy generator sitting next to you. You want to enjoy the world while still remaining connected, and we allow people to do that.
Awesome. Great answer. And thank you so much. We're out of time for you, but there's some more questions in the Q&A that I'll let you get to in the back end. And thank you so much for your time and for your presentation.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So rounding up Group D for today, please welcome Chad McLennan, the CEO of Koios Medical.
Thanks to the Kingscrowd folks. It's an honor and privilege to be here, especially after seeing so many amazing companies yesterday and today. So if I didn't love what I do so much, I would be investing and helping out many of these great missions and awesome founders. But I actually love what we're doing. And as it says right there on the screen, what is Koios Medical? It's really about saving time and then saving lives. And time is money, and there's nothing that you can put a price tag on like someone's life. But how are we doing that? We have created what we call smart ultrasound. It's a disrupting and transforming cancer diagnosis platform that's now available worldwide. We have mounting problems. I don't know the last time you tried to get an appointment. There's a crisis in the workforce, a shortage of physicians, shortage of sonographers. And the cancer incidence is on the rise. Breast cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer globally. So these forces are coming together and causing physicians to be stressed out, burned out, concerned about liability. And then what happens to the patient? It's a missed cancer. It's an unnecessary procedure. It's anxiety from a callback. It's costly. And sadly, there's way too many instances where it results in lives being lost. It doesn't have to be that way. So rather than getting technical, I'm going to give you the best analog that I can come up with. One of the most fascinating technologies uses sound waves, and we use ultrasound, which is also sound waves. So you're listening to music and you go, yep, that's the Beatles. Let it be. What a great tune. Imagine now you take a medical image and you could Shazam the exam. and with the push of a button, analyze the data in the image the same way you can analyze a song and find out, is it suspicious or is it benign? You can let it be. Picture's worth 1,000 words. That's it right there. One application directly on GE's hardware, Philips hardware, and soon Siemens. That's the Koios button, and we are detecting and diagnosing cancer. It's AI software for accurate and fully automated reporting, FDA cleared and with CE marks. It's an AI generated report that gives you superhuman accuracy in seconds, robust evidence over 20 peer-reviewed published studies, and it's from pixel data to paragraphs. It generates a patient report that's billable. It's trusted in leading hospitals here in the US and around the world. A global footprint, already present in 35 countries, with projects underway with multiple health ministries. But it's the voices of our customers that mean the most, their experiences, seeing it cut down their reading times almost in half, seeing them profoundly influenced by the practice capabilities using AI, and making them into better physicians. It's a pretty big TAM, 2 billion for us, 14 billion overall. But what's really exciting is we're experiencing this 26% CAGR, and we feel it. As they talk about with deep tech and med tech, how it takes years to gradually make an impact, and then suddenly things take off. That's our existence right now over the last 2 years. Up 150% 2024, 250 2025, while we were able to reduce operating expenses by 30%. We have an SQL pipeline that's 4.5 times our burn, roughly 20 million in leads, 5.3 million in total contract value. Like I said, triple-digit growth, and our distribution network is second to none. We're estimating a 9x growth in the next 4 to 5 years. The current offering, we've only raised 39 million to date, is out on WeFunder with Kingscrowd Capital as our lead. It's preferred stock, raising 2 million, of which there's 826 available. Mitsui, the large Japanese investment trading house, who also happens to be an investor for Warren Buffett. I tell people about the transitive property. Berkshire Hathaway is in Koios. Right now, you get to invest side by side in this current round led by Kingscrowd. I'm going to cut to the chase and give you the top 10 reasons why. It's not a concept. It's a thriving company with a huge moat. It's reimbursement eligible. It's already avidly in use, not just in academic medical centers, but over 2,000 sites. We were Newsweek World's Best Digital Health Company, and we're going full AI native. Our customer retention and net revenue retention figures are excellent, showing pricing headroom. A wonderful distribution network, the big guys, GE, Philips, as well as local distributors. Customer advocates, word of mouth referrals. We're a dominant market position with literally no competition. Ultrasound is hard. Poised to become global standard of care. And we're turning down VC in favor of customers, physicians, partners. So here's just a quick video. What we launched with Philips this past March, with some comments from many of our investors, and even physicians. The nine times top 10 most raised in the country. We've raised 2.35 via Reg CF to date. We have 816 investors. And this partnership with Philips will give us access to the 300,000 ultrasound scanners that is currently in circulation worldwide.
Philips.
What's now? Breast and thyroid. What's new? The ability to be the comprehensive ultrasound AI analysis platform. That QR code will take you right to the WeFunder site to join the Koios community today. Questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Chad, for presenting. And as you say, Kingscrowd is happily leading your current race. So it's very impressive. We see that sales are picking up. We bet on you a couple of years ago, and very happy to see that your growth is continuing. For investors right here who maybe not be as familiar with um, sales cycle in the med industry. Can you kind of walk us through a sales cycle? Who do you reach out to? Where does a hospital or a clinic get the funding approval from, and how does that work? And what are kind of the bottlenecks and sometimes the obstacles that you have to overcome?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for that. Well, healthcare is obviously incredibly complicated. And the reason I mentioned that we're both in academic centers and community practices, our ICP right now, ideal customer profile, are those independent, privately owned imaging centers that have a much shorter sales cycle. The Mount Sinai's, the Yales, the MGBs are really important to have as a logo, but that's also requires a lot of patience. But there's a tremendous amount of funding now coming available. And what's unique about Koios is we're self-funded and we offer a 300 to 400% ROI out of the gate because we're the only AI solutions that's reimbursed from commercial payers. So across the AI spectrum in healthcare, the big criticism is where's the AI? We are the exception to that rule.
Awesome, Chad. Thank you so much. I'm not seeing any questions right now in the chat. Oh, there's one actually. Spoke too soon. Do you offer any financing to your customers, Chad?
We actually go beyond offering financing. We'll be willing to go here in the US, we go at risk. We have a handful of customers. Rather than paying the upfront annual subscription, we do a value share. So we put our money where our mouth is and say, we'll just share the reimbursement proceeds. So it keeps their risk down. They don't have funds available for this budget cycle. That doesn't slow us down.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your presentation and for your time. That was amazing. And for kind of closing us out here.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. Take care, everybody. Leah, good to see you again.
Awesome. So as we go to the vote, I'd like to hand it to Leah for a few closing thoughts on what they heard today.
Amazing. Well, I'm also seeing that as a panelist. I don't have the right to vote. And you know what? That makes my life way easier because I don't know who to pick within all of these four companies. I actually handpick a couple of them myself. And let me, as people vote, let me kind of tell you in the order why, or just all of them impressive. So first one that I see on the list here, Koios, who was also the last one pitching. We just hear about AI all the time, but really, if there's one thing that AI should do is saving lives. And Koios is not only just developing a product, it's actually selling it. It's actually saving lives in real time. And that's why we invested a couple of years ago, and that's why we're reinvesting because it's not only that they promised a good product, is that they are delivering on actual sales. And we see a lot of med tech companies raising online, and a lot of them are just developing a product, but you don't really see traction. And with Koios, you see that traction. So I'm very happy to have had Chad pitch here. Let's take a look at Green Coffee Company now. So, if we have, I know a few age members here who read our newsletters. Actually, our newsletter is even open for free customers. And if you see the companies that are like featuring on the newsletter, I typically don't have a lot of CPG companies. Why? Because a lot of CPG, especially food and coffee companies, are just operating in markets that are absolutely crowded. And Green Coffee Company is taking probably one of the most commoditized, fragmented industry you can think of, coffee, and successfully grew from $1 million in 2021 to I believe $37 million in 2024. Don't have numbers in front of me, but from the top of my head, that's what it is. That's extremely impressive. We can really talk about terms, returns, and projections, but I really invite investors to go on the race page, kind of look at what the company is thinking ahead. I'm usually very careful with projections, but when you see a company that has been growing that well, it kind of gives you hope that they know how to operate, they know how to execute on the company, and that they actually can go ahead and grow that company well. Then we have emissions-free generator, and there's one comment in the comment section that really summarizes what I thought when I learned about this company first is why has not anyone done that before? And that's really what it is, right? We see hydrogen for, of course, spaceships. That's kind of the most natural utilization right now, but we also believe that green hydrogen can be used maybe in the future for planes, boats, etc. But all of that is just in the future, and there's just not any really cost-efficient, affordable way to use hydrogen for green energy right now. An emission-free generator is just making it happen. It's solving a big problem. So I was very, very excited to see Chase pitching. And last but not least, Hylio. So actually, a couple of weeks ago, Kingscrowd had a live pitch event, in-person pitch event in Texas. I had the chance to see Arthur pitch in real life, and it was really interesting because all of the investors after were all kind of coming to me and just talking to me about Hylio. They were just impressed by what the company is doing because they are just doing a product that not only is difficult from a technical standpoint to realize, but can actually save farmers money. And I think you talk to any business, what do they actually want? They want to be able to save money. And so as Hylio really help them reduce overhead, reduce the amount of payloads or fertilizer or whatever chemicals they're using, farmers can really save funding, just save money. It makes their life completely easier and they can just manage their crops better. So that was my opinion on all of these companies, and I'm really excited to see what the crowd has been voting today.
Yeah, I think that was an awesome summary of everything and really great points on all those companies. So thank you, Léa, and thank you to all of your founders in Group D. We really appreciate, sharing your work with this community. And the voting prompt, as you can see, is now open in the event platform. So make sure that you cast your vote for the company that you found most compelling. And the winner from Group D will advance to the championship on Wednesday. Little self plug, of course, if you're interested in learning more about Dealmaker and raising capital from the community with a different approach, feel free to find me on LinkedIn or reach out. I'm happy to chat. Thank you again to Exchange Listing for sponsoring the session, and of course, Kingscrowd. Day 2 is a wrap, and we're excited to see everybody Wednesday for the final qualifying round and the championship.
Thanks, everyone. I love to see that comment section so active. So I hope that can keep on for the next sessions.